Hi! Welcome to Surviving Schizophrenia with Steven. My name is Steven. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, I'm here with my dad.
I'm Steve, Steven's dad.
And the holiday season is always a stressful time for me, but I want to talk about why that is and some of my strategies as to how I'm going to deal with that holiday stress this year so I have actually happy and joyful holiday season.
Right. So, Steven, with schizophrenia, why is it, and this is the question we want to answer in this video, why is it that someone that is suffering from schizophrenia has such a hard time, enjoying life, finding happiness, and, particularly in the holiday season, why, what's going on with that person that's suffering from schizophrenia that causes that issue with being able to enjoy, again, life and the holidays. So this is all about, less stress, more joy. Now, Stephen, I'd like to go through a number of things here. So we want to talk about holiday season challenges, right, for someone with schizophrenia. But before we do that, let's talk about, understanding the challenges and what are the challenges that someone with schizophrenia faces, particularly in the holiday season. And then we'll go into the strategies.
Sounds good.
Now, we've got this, Stephen. If we go, if I go too deep, I want to peel back the layers, so to speak. Mm-hmm. We've had some great discussions in the last week or so off camera.
Yeah, we have.
Where, we talk about, what causes the stress? And how does that feel for you? With schizophrenia, and what can I do as a father, and what can a care provider do to help lessen that stress?
Yeah, so the stress comes from a lot of things, but one of the major issues I face, especially in the holiday season, is that there's a lot of stimulus, right? There's a lot of energy, and a lot of it's good energy. But even if it's good energy for me, that can be too much for me to take in, and I get stressed out. This happened yesterday. My dad was talking to me. He was getting really excited. It was all good, but it was too much for me to take. And like the holiday seasons, everyone's tends to have more energy, right? And that can be too much for me.
Right. So Stephen, the holiday season challenges, really, there's overstimulation from holiday activities, but also what you just mentioned, just overstimulation of people like me, your dad, that is a little more excited during these times maybe.
Yeah.
And so there's that overstimulation, there's the disruption of routine.
That too.
There's social pressure and expectations, maybe number 3. And then number 4 would be emotional stress from mixed feelings or past traumas. Because this holiday season, it does for all of us, it brings back, the memories of the past. Yeah. And that can be particularly troublesome for someone with schizophrenia. But let's before, those are really the 4 holiday season challenges for someone with schizophrenia. But just briefly, let's talk about schizophrenia to put this in context, right? Schizophrenia is a lifelong illness. And someone that has schizophrenia has gone through a number of different phases typically. And the first would be the prodrome phase, which is the early onset, which would be before you get into the acute phase, before the full-blown delusions and hallucinations, right? Schizophrenia is most commonly associated with psychosis and does require psychosis. So when someone is diagnosed with schizophrenia, the diagnosis typically occurs during the acute phase of the illness, right? There's several phases. And the reason why it's important to understand the phases of schizophrenia, particularly for the holidays, is that's going to impact how that person is going to handle their environment, and it's also going to impact how someone like me as a father is going to kind of help plan that out and take care of that person with schizophrenia, or at least guide that person to a better trajectory during the holiday season. So with Stephen, so there's a number of different phases, right? So you've got the acute phase of schizophrenia. That's when you have the active symptoms of psychosis, delusions, and hallucinations. And that's usually where, during that phase, when schizophrenia is diagnosed by a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
That's the acute phase. Of course, you have the phase before that where you have some abnormal behavior and other signs that would suggest maybe the person is going to fall into schizophrenia. But it's the acute phase that, where schizophrenia, the active positive symptoms, what we call positive symptoms, are present. Now, Stephen has gone through that phase.
I have.
And it lasted for about a year and a half, and that's been gone for about 8 or 9 years now.
Yeah,
So-
I no longer have psychosis or delusions or hallucinations.
Right.
It hasn't happened in a very long time now.
Right. So that's a commonly misunderstood issue with schizophrenia, is that it's, I think people often believe that someone with schizophrenia is currently, suffering from delusions, hearing voices.
Which is possible, but that's not the case for all of us. If I take my medication, that's not an issue for me.
That's right. So you've got the severe, acute phase, and then you move into the stabilization phase, where there is symptom, management, where you're managing the symptoms, and after that phase, you're into this, maintenance or chronic phase. You're into this phase where you're trying to prevent relapse, and you're maintaining, and trying to, do a little bit better, but you don't want to slide back.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at with Stephen.
Yes.
So Stephen, we're in the maintenance, chronic phase of the illness. It's important to realize that it's a lifelong illness, at least at this point.
True.
And the reason why that is important is to help, your loved one, or if you're a care provider, assist that person. You really have to understand. One has to understand, the illness to really fully understand what's going on with schizophrenia. So that's kind of an overview of, schizophrenia, the phases, the prodrome phase before the acute onset. Then you have the acute onset, and then you have, after that, stabilization, and then, kind of the chronic maintenance phase. So Stephen now, this holiday season, and as in the last few years, is in the kind of the chronic maintenance stage of the illness. There's no psychosis, there's no delusions, but he still has schizophrenia.
Yes.
So what does that mean? I mean, one would say, well, why does he have schizophrenia? In other words, it's kind of an interesting take. If you put aside the delusions and hallucinations, that's the psychosis that's required for a diagnosis of schizophrenia. But Stephen doesn't have that any longer. So it's complicated. And where we're at now, and and of course everyone's different, but where Stephen is at is we're looking at what they've called the negative symptoms and some of the cognitive symptoms, right?
Yeah.
So, in some people with schizophrenia is often, one of the long-term chronic parts of the illness is this, slight cognitive decline, slowness, and
I have trouble thinking clearly most of the time. I have trouble. Sometimes I'll mix my words together. Even when I'm thinking words, I'll get them mixed up sometimes. I'll read stuff in incorrect order. Stuff like that.
So that's what, and then that's what we're dealing with now. And then these kind of negative, what they call the negative symptoms of schizophrenia, are the social withdrawal, the kind of the lack of motivation, or the inability to have that motivation.
Yeah, I was a very social kid before I fell with schizophrenia when I was 12 years old. But ever since, I haven't liked being around people a lot. Even if I end up having fun, I'd be much more comfortable just on my own, as opposed to, I don't really want to be around other people actively for the most part.
Right. So which
makes it really hard during the holiday season.
Right. So Stephen, before we go into the strategies, there's a number of different strategies to have more joy, less stress, right?
Yeah.
Less stress, more joy during the holiday season. We're going to go through a number of different strategies. As we go through those strategies, then we'll talk about, Stephen, how you're applying those strategies.
Yes.
Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
And now, Stephen, I also want to, peel back the onion layer, so to speak. And want to be careful. I don't want to stress you out. I don't want to go
Appreciate
too. I don't want to go too deep, but I want to. I want to ask some questions about how you're feeling and how you feel in social situations.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if it's too nerve-wracking, just let me know. If you can't, take it. I want to come up and find out, really what is this?
For sure.
So Stephen, let me ask you before we go through these strategies.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a, just say the grocery store.
Yeah.
With, a few people in the grocery store. You're not there with a friend. Maybe you're just there with mom or you're with me, and you're going down the aisle to pick a few things out. I'm maybe in the other area, the supermarket. Maybe mom's in the other area as well. So you're kind of by yourself there, picking up a few things to put in the cart later. Maybe you got to talk to a few people. What are you feeling in that situation?
So in that exact situation, I'd be feeling that people are thinking of me, in the sense of I walk past a person and I think they're actively thinking about something about me. Maybe I nod like hello and they don't say anything. I'm like, oh, I offended them. They're gonna be upset with me. I'm overthinking that everyone else around me is thinking of something about me. Usually a negative thing, like I'm messing something up because I didn't get a response from this person, or I don't know how to explain that any better. And I hope that makes sense, where it's like I'm constantly thinking other people are thinking that I'm doing something wrong.
Okay, we've talked about this actually, Stephen, and so you're aware of that you have this feeling.
For sure.
And are you also aware that that's false, right?
I'm totally aware that that's not accurate. No one in that grocery store is caring about what I'm doing.
Right. I mean, if you accidentally bump into someone in the grocery store.
No, not even bumping it.
No. Not even bumping it.
Yeah, just in general.
Okay, so Stephen, why? So this would be the why. We've discussed this, and why? It's easy to ask, but why can't you put that aside? In other words, why can't you say to yourself, "Look, you understand that that's really an irrational thought."
Yeah, it is.
Because, as you said, people are not, they don't care.
No.
Right? They're it's not that they don't care, but they're doing their stuff. People are, bumping into each other maybe, but like you said, not even bumping into each other. You may have this feeling if you just pass someone, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So is that something that you've ever tried to really kind of work on to tell your mind, just no, don't think that?
No, actually, I just tend to overthink it anyway. I have trouble with that for sure.
Right, and there are therapies that cognitive behavioral therapies that can address that those issues. But it's been a long time. Stephen's had this illness for 12 years now, and so not able to shake that is a big issue. In especially the holiday season.
It doesn't affect too much, to be clear, though. It might stress me out more, but this isn't a serious issue necessarily.
Right.
There's an issue, but it's not stopped me from going to the grocery store, for example.
Right. But the other issue, though, is, you're often, really tired. And I think that is related to an elevated heart rate. When someone gets anxious, we talked to Stephen's psychiatrist about this, and she's explained it, very naturally that if someone is anxious, and as part of Stephen's schizophrenia, he has this anxiety. Mm-hmm. If someone's anxious and their heart is kind of racing, even though they're just sitting around, it's like they're running a marathon. So they can become exhausted. In fact, there are a lot of times when you're just sitting there watching something in the TV room, Stephen, and you're actually sweating. I mean, your back is wet.
That happens all the time.
And that would suggest, right, that does happen very often, and that would suggest that you have an elevated heart rate.
Yes. Well, I definitely do have an elevated heart rate. That is for sure. Also, the part about not sleeping well, I'm constantly thinking. My mind cannot take a break to just relax in that regard. So I'm never stopping, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does. And that is a big issue. And, that's kind of the that's a big issue with the holidays because, that inability to kind of shut down your mind and relax, I think that is a major symptom of schizophrenia. It's something that I think many people with schizophrenia, have that inability to relax, really relax.
Yeah.
And they may have to take some medication to do it. Like
I do that, yeah. But for sure, especially in the holiday season, that's amplified.
Right. And it's amplified because
everyone's doing more stuff, I guess. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. Like, people more in a rush. Always doing this. I'm not explaining this very well, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, I think that did make sense. It's just more of the overstimulation because people are, people have more things to do.
There you go.
Potentially during the holiday season.
Yeah.
So strategies, Stephen, for coping and having, again, more joy, less stress. That's kind of the theme of this video. More joy, less stress.
Yes.
And we can do it.
Yes.
We can do it. We can do it.
I've done this before, and it's been getting better in the last few years.
Yes, it has.
For sure.
Right. And in talking to you just in the last few minutes here, I didn't want to suggest that it's right. It's getting better.
Yeah. For sure.
And one of the key, I guess ingredients, or not really ingredients, but one of the key ways to help someone with schizophrenia is to, one, realize where they're at, right? That's why we kind of started this video with, the phases of schizophrenia. If someone is fluidly psychotic, you're not going to a holiday party.
No.
Right? No. Or you're not going to a dance. You're probably not even going to the grocery store.
No.
You want to make sure that you're eating right, you're on your medication, and you're talking to your healthcare providers.
For sure. And keeping the stress as low as possible for that person.
Correct.
That's what we did with me.
Okay, Stephen, can we talk about the strategies for less stress, more joy this holiday?
Yes, let's get to it.
Okay, so one of the strategies would be maintaining routine.
That's important as much as you can. Obviously, it is the holiday season. Sometimes you can't, but routines, at least for me, are comfortable.
Right, they're predictable, right?
Yeah.
And I think that does help reduce the stress. So we're talking about regular eating, exercise, and medication,
and sleep pattern,
and sleep patterns. And we'll just interject really fast here. In the last week or two, Stephen's been having really trouble sleeping. You're waking up
almost like insomnia, actually.
Yeah, you've been waking up extremely tired. So Stephen would get up at 11:30 or noon after having gone to bed at around maybe 11 o'clock at night. So in bed for 12 hours, and wakes up and looks exhausted.
Yeah.
And so that's not obvious. That's not good. We're and we are trying to work on that and resolve that, because you have to be sleeping.
Not sleeping can affect the mental health of anyone, especially people with schizophrenia like me.
Right, and that lack of sleep can lead to a relapse.
True.
So potentially. So we want to always be really careful there. So maintaining a routine, that's going to be one of the strategies right through this holiday season.
For sure.
Maintain the routine
as much as possible.
Setting realistic expectations. Okay, so that is one of the key things, realistic expectations. So we can talk about, parties and stuff and activities that we'd want to, engage in this holiday season. And, Maria and I may be out doing some of that, and Stephen as well. Yes. But, in talking to Stephen about this, it's like, what can you handle? Exactly. And it's communication. Yeah. Right.
I only have so much capacity.
Right. And the rubber band. If it snaps, that's not good. We don't want any snapping.
So you want to have the rubber band be as less tight as possible.
Yeah, as less tight. Yeah, flexible. So it is all about, in helping someone with schizophrenia, it really is about kind of understanding and listening to them, and having them explain what the limitations are and how they would feel maybe. And hey, what about this party we're thinking about going to? Do you want to go with us? Yeah. It's going to be at a particular place. It'll be these people. Sure. Maybe it's not going to be family members. Maybe it is. But talk about it. Talk it through.
Yeah.
Does that help, Stephen?
That does, actually. And talking it through will help prepare me for that situation. But it's also good to have an exit plan, so to speak.
Right.
A strategy, a way to know if things do get too much, I can leave. Right. And that can either be by not actually completely leaving and maybe just going to the bathroom, right? You can always use the bathroom. So I've done that, where I go and I go to the restroom and I just relax as best I can for a bit, reset, regain my composure, whatever needs to happen. Take that little time to myself and then go back to the party or whatever it is. But if that does become too much, then it's good to know I can just go, hey Dad, maybe bring your dad aside. Kind of it's too much right now, it's a little stressed out. Can we head out soon?
Right, and what kind of that exit plan is part of the planning. And so if we're going to go to an event, even with family, we will often have a discussion about when Stephen, when you're ready to leave, let us know.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll take you home. Maybe Mom and I will both go all together. Yeah. We'll split it up. Who knows? But we will accommodate you, Stephen, and because we don't want to stress you out.
For sure. And actually, sometimes just knowing that'll happen, or I can do that, I can stay longer.
Yes,
because I know if it does become too much, I can still leave.
Right? Isn't that interesting? That just knowing that there's that plan to leave the party at any moment that you want to, yeah, enables one to basically survive the party
and stay longer.
Talking about surviving that the party. Now it could just be if you just envision just with maybe a group of 20, 30 family members, yeah, not here at the house, but maybe it's at their house. Mm-hmm. What are the stressors, Stephen, that you're feeling? I mean,
I'd say overstimulation, like I've said before in this video now. I'd also say just noise level even, and a lot happening. That can stress me out on its own. People eating especially really stresses me out, but just having like a lot of people talking at once at a loud volume can be enough to stress me out.
Right. I think that has to do with the cognitive issues.
Mm-hmm, probably.
And yeah, and it and in part potentially some of the medication, but it's really easy to blame the medication. And the medication is what has brought Stephen back into reality. Yeah,
I've realized the importance of taking my medication actually from like pretty much the beginning, and I'm so glad I did, because had I not, I would not be here today as healthy as I am right now.
Right. I mean, that really restored Stephen's sanity.
Yeah.
Pulled him out of the psychosis after about 18 months. It was a long time, and we get you get comments on the site on your channel, Stephen, talking about the medication, and do you want to change the medication and maybe go off the medication. And it's just and who knows about the future, right? We're not saying that anything is set in stone.
Of course not.
It's certainly open to any suggestions and
For sure.
But
as of right now, I need to stay on my meds.
Right, because Stephen's been very consistent,
mm-hmm,
and has been improving. So you don't want to if you've got a situation where someone's improving like that on medication and it's working, which it is, do we wish that the improvement would be greater than it is? Of course. Right. But to do something that might make it get worse, that's not the way to go.
No.
So talking more about, what about self-care? Focusing on self-care during the holiday season, that's another strategy. What do you do to focus on self-care, Stephen?
I'm actually not entirely sure what I do. What do I do?
Well, think about it in this context. Okay, you're self-care. What are you doing? During the day after you wake up, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, that's what I meant. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
I try to keep my stress level as low as possible the day by taking the breaks I might need, depending on what I'm doing in the day. Whether it's playing a game, even for a little bit, that can help get me reset, or watching a comedy is my favorite thing to do.
Right. The other thing I think that has really worked for us is to really, in the last few years, to have a better communication between Stephen and us as mom and dad. And that communication is key.
It is.
Because, there was a time about, I would say about 7 or 8 years ago, after the acute phase lifted, and you were out of psychosis, we went into this period of no real positive symptoms. You weren't seeing or hearing anything, no delusions or hallucinations. But we went into this period of about 4 years where you were hyperly agitated.
Yeah.
A lot of agitation, and just little simple things around the house would just, it would cause you just to run into the other room.
Yeah.
And we have seen comments on your videos of people that have brothers and sisters that have schizophrenia, and they see that this is happening. The person with schizophrenia, is so anxious that they might run to the other, from one room to the other. Right? Maybe you're in the family room, and they'll run to the bedroom, and not be able to kind of do it in a smooth way. And I think part of that is it's obviously excessive stress.
It's the stress, for sure. If I hear something that at that time, when I just couldn't take it, and instead of saying something, I get the heck out of there. Shut every door as fast as I can, even that means slamming it, and get away from that noise or whatever it was. As opposed to now, where I can be like, hey Dad, this is an issue, this is why, and then go remove myself from the situation without slamming the doors, without having to run most of the time.
Right. So I attribute that to a communication that we're talking. Also, you've been able to kind of reduce your stress level there to be able to say, hey, I'm now really anxious about something that's going on, and you're addressing it.
Yeah.
And that's excellent. So, what about staying connected? Another strategy for less stress, more joy during the holiday season. Staying connected with healthcare providers.
Yeah. Actually, similar to what we were just talking about, I had good communication with my psychiatrist and my therapist for that exact reason. They can help. They know what to do better than pretty much anyone else because they're trained for it. So I have good communication with them, it'll help me get through the holiday season. It'll help me get through any issues I have because they'll know what to do about it best.
Yeah, I think that's great, Stephen. So less stress, more joy. It really is about sitting down and having that communication and dialogue about, hey, Stephen, what do you want to do? This is your holiday season, right?
Too, yeah.
It's our holiday season, but it's your holiday season. How do you see this next month going? And what are the things that you might want to do and things that you don't want to do?
Right, for sure.
So to keep the stress low, and to try to
have enjoyment too. Because if I'm doing something I want to do, I'll enjoy the holidays more.
Right. So let's talk about that. That this whole concept of enjoyment and happiness. That has been the elusive thing about schizophrenia.
It's true.
And and everyone is different. We don't want to. It's a spectrum.
Definitely.
And some people that have schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder don't have the cognitive issues. They don't have these negative symptoms, the negative components of the illness, which are kind of the social withdrawal and inability to feel a lot of pleasure, and they might have gone into psychosis, but then they're out of it and they're kind of like living their life, and it's not too bad, which is
Of course,
great.
there's the other spectrum, which is the complete opposite.
Correct.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yes, you are, Stephen. You're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So there is this broad spectrum.
For sure.
But talking about, let's talk about, if we can, and peel back the onion layers there a little bit about joy and happiness. What do you experience joy and happiness? Right?
Yes, now I do.
Okay. Can you explore that a little bit?
Yeah, for a long time I was incredibly depressed and anxious. Well, I can not really speak when I was in psychosis. I know I wasn't then, but afterwards I realized I had schizophrenia. That took almost all the joy out of my life. I was depressed about it. I was anxious. I couldn't handle the fact I had schizophrenia. Also, I had schizophrenia. I had all these horrible symptoms. My life seemed to be going nowhere. I was suicidal. I was stressed out. I was not happy. As I recovered and stopped being suicidal, I've begun to experience more happiness since. However, it's still tricky. I was so unhappy for so long. When I am happy, it doesn't feel natural to me. It doesn't feel right. It feels like, why should I be happy? I wasn't for so long. However, that is lifting now, and now I'm starting to feel happy genuinely. As opposed to just getting happiness for a long time from comedy, TV shows, movies, media like that, games, video games, books, which was not my reality, so I could enjoy it and be happy in it when I wasn't in my reality. However, now that is not the case. I can enjoy my reality now too.
That's so heartwarming for me as your father, Stephen, and that is so important in life. To feel happiness and joy. And of course, it's not every moment. No one feels that all the time.
No,
of course,
it goes for everyone. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But that's fantastic, Stephen. So that is another strategy. I think the last one we were going to talk about would be focus on the spirit of the season, and that's intellectual. That's thought, right? How do you do the spirit of the season?
That's basically just, at least for me, trying to enjoy it nonetheless, and not focusing on all the bad things. So trying to reframe my state of mind to enjoy the holiday season, to be happy, and that's actually what I found in my life anyway. If I can reframe my thought process to be, instead of I am not happy, I'm really stressed, I'm really depressed, I don't feel good today, to instead being like, well, I'm doing better today, I have this to look forward to. For the holidays, it's almost Christmas, maybe I'm excited for that, to see family. Changing my thought process to be more positive instead of something more negative, because if I think more positively, I will be happier and more positive, as opposed to if I'm just thinking negative thoughts, then I will be sad.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's also, we can do holiday light. In other words, we can also discuss not, going all out for the holidays, right? We can bring it down. That's part of the discussion we should have, bring it down to where, the optimal, level of enjoyment is,
Because also having like the whole house decked out, which we haven't done yet, probably will, with decorations, even though I might be doing a lot better now, can still bring back memories of when I wasn't doing well. Or, for example, before when I was doing really well, and now I think back to that and that makes me sad because I'm not there now. Even as like a little tangent, but like music can do that for me. If I hear a song from 2010, that can make me very sad, because I remember those times that are not there any longer. However, I'm better now that it happened in a long time, so I can still realize that and reframe my thought process there too, and be like, well, that was the past, this is now, and I can still be happy in the now.
Yeah, these are some of the strategies that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Stephen and I have talked about, and Maria as well, Stephen's mom, my wife, and to have less stress, more joy during the holiday season.
For sure.
So to wrap up, we would really like to hear your comments and suggestions on how you navigate, whether you have schizophrenia or you're supporting someone with schizophrenia, how you navigate, these issues.
Basically, your strategies to help other people maybe too in the comments that might be looking for more strategies than even what we gave here today.
Right. And now one thing I want to put on camera, right, is that right before we shot, Stephen nicked himself.
Yeah,
so it is bleeding a little bit. No, okay.
Darn it.
I know, it's okay. So you nicked yourself a little bit.
I cut myself shaving today.
Right.
I think I should have swapped out my razor for a new razor, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so we almost postponed this, and we were ready to shoot it. And Steve, I'm so proud of you because, it was bleeding. You can see a little bit of the blood there. It's bled a little bit, not much, but it has a little bit.
Okay.
Steven said, let him know if it starts bleeding. We'll cut the camera, take care of that, and come back. So I didn't do that. Not on purpose. It was just
no, it just happened.
But
we didn't think of it, but
right. I did notice that it's bled a little bit there. But I wanted to put that on the camera here because another thing that you really adapted well there. You didn't want to be on camera with that nick and that little blood, and that's really respectful of those that are watching this. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
At the same time, we were ready to go.
Yeah,
and
we're all set up.
Yeah, and it's just I told you it's just part of life.
Which is true.
We'll damp it, and it's not a serious injury or like that.
No.
And let's just roll. And I think that
I'm glad we did. I think it's good.
I think it's good. Yeah. So we are really wishing you a happy and joyous holiday season.
For sure.
If you have schizophrenia, anxiety disorder, or depression, we're we really do hope that Stephen's channel is an avenue for you to be able to comment
and feel like a part of this community we have here.
Yes, correct.
For everyone that has commented, you are the community.
Exactly. So we're very appreciative of everyone and for watching and wishing you just a wonderful, safe season this year for the holidays.
We hope you have a happy and healthy rest of your day and holiday season, and hope to see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye. We'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.